Sure, please.
Hello, everybody. This is Team Water. My name is Omar,
I'm Carson.
I'm Ernest.
and today we're going to be presenting genetic algorithms. And our table of contents will start off with obviously the foundations of the genetic algorithms, the core implementations, and the modern applications. And for the foundations, this is a list of the topics that we will be covering. Next. And then the first topic is evolutionary computation basics. So before we dive into genetic algorithms, we need to understand the foundation. So the EC, or evolutionary computation, is inspired by the theory of evolution observed in plants and animals. So the main idea is simple, powerful. So you want to evolve candidate solutions to a problem over many generations, improving their fitness step by step. So think of it as a feedback loop that you, as the algorithm designer, can control. So this is the loop where we start off with the population initialization, and then you start off with the diverse population of candidate solution, and then this diversity is crucial because it gives the algorithm more direction to explore. The next step would be the fitness evaluation, or the evaluation of the population that we have. So every population is evaluated by a fitness function, which then leads us to the next step, which is the selection step. And then the people with better fitness are selected. And then this basically mimics natural selection, where the stronger, more adaptive individuals have a higher chance of being chosen. And then I'll explain more later, but then we have the crossover step, where we cross over different selected parents, and then that way we can get more diversity. And obviously from that you can get mutations, and then from there you can go back and evaluate again, or keep going, or get a solution. If you go to the next step, I'm going to show you just a small thing about selection pressure. So as you can see, the higher the fitness, the higher the probability that the individual is selected. And yeah, this is the loop. Go more. And then some ideas to discuss are the balance. You want to balance exploration and exploitation. You want to maintain population diversity to avoid premature convergence. Also, this elitism idea that we'll explore more later. But you want to sometimes preserve the best individuals for each generation, so you keep those for better results. And then finally, EC algorithms are problem dependent, so the performance sometimes varies by domain. So now I'll explain the chromosome part. So in this section, I'm going to cover how we represent our candidate solutions in genetic algorithms. Each solution is represented as a kind of digital DNA strand. We call it a chromosome, and its components are genes. And so a chromosome is one complete solution, while a gene is one element within the solution. So each gene holds a value, and all genes together encode a potential solution to our problem. So the type of encodings that we have are binary encodings, which basically just works well for like discrete problems, and it's just a string of zeros and ones. And then we have the real valued encodings, which is just a floating number, better for continuous optimization. And then the pre-mutation coding is just each chromosome is an ordered list, and then this will be used for like some problems like TSP, which we'll cover later. And then the tree or graph encoding is is also common in genetic programming. Each individual is a tree, and representing so on and so forth. And then finally is just the indirect or custom encodings, and it's just a list, or sometimes it's a list of rules, priorities that decoder translates. And then next. And then we'll cover a little bit about fitness functions. So once we have a population of candidate solutions, we need a way to evaluate how good each one is. So it's the job of the fitness function. It measures how good each candidate solution is, drives selection and reproduction, and also must reflect true problem objectives. And then this is how the fitness works. So first we need an input of chromosomes, and then the function will be, and then we process the function to get an output, and then based on the score of the selection process, we can look at the fitness function. So if you go next, and then some like tips to design a good fitness function. The fitness function should align closely with the real world goal you care about. So like the feature selection you might use for model accuracy, the sensitivity. So small changes in solution should produce small changes in fitness. The efficiency should be computationally reasonable to evaluate, not too complicated. And then you should be able to handle constraints. Most real problems have constraints like time, capacity limits. So you should be able to handle those. And then I'm go next. I think it's the selection process. So for this, obviously some solutions are going to be better than others. So that's what the fitness function tells us. And then the selection uses that information to decide who gets to pass their genes to the next generation. So the key idea is to filter towards have a higher chance to reproduce, but it's not guaranteed. So we don't always pick the best. We keep some randomness in the process, and this randomness is important. And then there are two different methods. So we have the tournament and the roulette. So the tournament, we randomly choose a few individuals, say like 2 or 3, and then let them compete. And then based on the fitness, the one with the higher fitness wins and becomes a parent. And then we have the roulette wheel selection process, which each individual gets a slice on like a wheel, and then how big the fitness function, or how big the fitness is, you get a bigger wheel pie, I guess. And then you spin the wheel, and then it's just random. And then next is.
Okay, so going into crossover operations, this is basically how we get our populations to send their genes off to the next generation. So we use crossover, basically, and these are just two simple examples. There's many that you could do, but you can see we have the chromosomes from each parent. These are their genes. For 1-point crossover, we take the first 2 right here, we're like splitting in the middle, or at an arbitrary point. We take the first 2 from the first parent, and then we're taking the last 3 from the second parent. That gives us our new offspring. Same with this one, first 2 from the second parent, last 3 from the first parent. So it's kind of like we cross over the genes. So this like ensures, like say we selected the best parents. Now we've got the best genes from both the 2 best parents can send off to make a new kid. So we need to add mutations into the mix. That's this is how we get better solutions over time. This is how we don't just get stuck on the same solution. So like in nature, you've seen like evolution happens from random mutations. Like maybe a kid is born and they're like, it's a mutation as how strong they are. Maybe they're abnormally strong or something. That makes that person pass their genes on to the next person, so on and so forth. We need to simulate this in genetic algorithms or we get nowhere. So what we do, there's like an infinite number of different mutations you can do, but here are some like very simple ones. We could swap genes in a chromosome. We could insert a new one. We could flip a chromosome. We could displace some, so move, I guess, like a window of genes in there. We could do a bit flip if it's a binary encoding. So, yeah. Okay, so next up, we have the importance of population diversity and convergence. So basically, we see that we need a high diversity in our population, or the genes don't, we get the same genes over and over again. Like, we'll get stuck on a local optima. So if we have no diversity in it, we'll get stuck on this solution. So maybe our solution is, we get 5, and that's the best we can get after 300 generations or something. Nothing changes. We're stuck here. But if we have a higher diversity, we'll get more range of solutions. We'll be able to eventually find this one. But the problem is, if we have too high of diversity, we'll have too many solutions, and that will make it to where it's hard to eventually find the best one, because we have to look through all of these ones that we've got. So the importance is like finding balance is what we got to do. Okay, so now going into core implementations, a lot of this, just looking at it, it's kind of hard to see until you see an actual example. So I'm gonna work through this first example. So we're gonna do the knapsack problem. I mean, all of you guys should have seen the knapsack problem in this class. It's basically, if you don't know it, it's what's the highest value of objects we can fit in this knapsack, based on the weight. We have a weight constraint. Don't look at that image, but I drew one here. If you guys can see this, it might be too small. Yeah, my apologies. But so we have 5 objects. We have one. They all have value. You guys can't see this right in the back. But should I make this bigger? Or you guys see it? Okay. So we have our objects. We need to encode them. How we do that is we make a chromosome. One way of doing a chromosome, I'll try to make this bigger. Okay, so we're defining our initial population. I'm just using a random population here. So we're doing a binary encoding. We're doing the 0-1 knapsack problem. So this is an example of a chromosome. 1 means that we took the first item here. Can I number these? 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 means we took the first. 0 means we didn't take it. So 1 or 0, took it or not took it. That's our chromosome. We took the first one and we took the last one. So we're just going to define a sample population. I'm doing 4 for simplicity. Okay, so here's our sample population, our first initial one. Now we need to select the best one. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do a tournament because it's just, I think it's the best for this example. We're going to find, we're going to, I guess, define a fitness function. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the highest value that still fits in the knapsack. That's our fitness that we're doing. So we look, this first one, we see the first item that's worth $20, the last item that's worth 10. Our value is $30. And we know that it's under 15 pounds, it's 14 pounds, 4 pounds, 10 pounds, so 14 pounds. If it was over that, then we'll take out the one with the smallest ratio of pounds to dollars. Okay, moving on to the second one. We've got, it's the second, third, fourth item. That adds up to $24. Third one, it adds up to $32. And the fourth one, that adds up to $22. Now we're going to choose our best ones, and these are going to be, we're going to group our best ones together based on like their rank. So this one's going to be parent 1, parent 2. Well, they're just grouped together. This one's actually the highest one. Grouping these together. This one's going to be parent 3, parent 4. So these two are together, and then these two are together. Looks like I'm out of space, so I'm just going to erase everything. Is it clear up to this point how we got here? Did everyone get this? Good? Okay. Let's move on to the next step.
You want to use this side?
Yeah, I'll use that side, actually. Yeah. Okay, so next now we need to do crossover. We need to actually make our next generation. Moving on to crossover. The next step in our thing. So let's see. P1. P1 equals P2 equals Okay, so we're gonna do crossover. Basically, it just looks like this. We're gonna take just a 1-point crossover. We're gonna take this part, we're gonna split it here. So this first one, it's gonna be 1, 0. This is our new population. 1, 0. Then we're gonna take the last 3 from P2. 0, 0, 0. New population here. We've got a new one here. It's gonna be 1, 1, 0. So we see we took just the first part, crossed over. This one's from P1, P2, so on, P2, there, so on and so forth. We're going to do the same thing with the other ones because we want to have the same population moving forward, same number at least. P4, just say, okay. I'm just going to, for the sake of time, I'm just going to say they equal x3, or no, they equal, what is this? X2, and X4. And then I'm just going to draw the crossover. Okay, so we've got 0, 1, 0, 0. Now we need to add mutation. This is what's going to make our next generation at least a little different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly flip some bits. So I'm just going to look at this one. I'm going to flip this one right here. Randomly flip that one. Then I'm also going to randomly flip this one. Okay. Now we do the fitness again, just like I did over there. We're going to do this again. We're going to see this one now. We have a new value that is $27. We have a new value here. We add them all together. We end up getting $42. But the problem is that we're overweight. Since we're overweight, we get rid of this guy, and now we're only at $22. Then we'll get, or no, we're at $32. We'll go here, look at this value, it's 27. In a similar case, we gotta get rid of this one. This one, $24. Then we're gonna take our initial 2 parents, we're gonna keep these guys in. This is called elitism. We're gonna keep them in because they're the best ones. We don't wanna lose our best genes. So we're gonna keep these guys here. So X1 and X3 here, which they equal $30 and $32. Now we rank them, and we see that it looks like our best ones, this one's the same as what X3 was, looks like they're the same value. We can call this a local optimum. Since we picked the same parents that we did last time, this is a local optimum. There's many ways we can fix this, but one way we can do is we can add some more mutations in, we can flip some more bits, add some more randomness. Instead, we only did four population number. We could do like 5, 6, 7, however many we want to do. But yeah, that's the general overview of how you do genetic algorithms with MapStat.
All right, thank you, Carson. Now we're gonna go a little faster. For traveling salesman problem, basically we applied the same type of orders as genetic algorithm. So as we know that TSP is just trying to visit every city's exactly once and return to the starting point with the most minimum total distance. It is hard because all the possible tours is going to be exponentially high, and if we just brute force it, it is not scalable, right? So genetic algorithm actually steps in as a whole heuristic, a search method, and in that way we could apply everything. So first, the chromosome where we evaluate everything. So we consider one city as a gene, and the whole route. So from cities to cities and back to original as one chromosome. And so this is considered as one chromosome where we go from 0, 0, 3, 1, 5, 2. It's just kind of a random thing. We started out by picking, depending on how much we want, for example, like 10 of random numbers that is not, it's permutation like, so it's not repeated, and we just pick from there. And this considered as one tour. So based on one tour, we find the fitness of that tour. So for the whole tour, we calculate the total distance it travels, and then we kind of find the balance out of it, which is 1 minus 1 plus tour length. That is Pomona that we go for. So if the route is shorter, it has higher fitness overall, and if it's longer, it has a lower fitness. And that way, in that population that we have with this moment, we can find kind of the best route possible out of the number that we have. And then we're repeating the elliptism again. So applying elliptism here is like out of the population, we can pick like 1 to 5% that is the best routes out there, which is considered shortest routes, and then we just make them skip the crossover and mutation. So they don't need to go over that, they're just too good. So let's just move to the next generation. And for selections, we're also doing tournament selections because it's just the most fit. And basically, we randomly pick 3 to 5 numbers depending on the population size, and we compete. We calculate their total distance and see which one has the shortest one, and we keep that in the loop, and then moving on to the next. Where that for crossover, we basically use order crossover, which is similar to what Carson said, but this time it's going to be a permutation like. So for here, from 2 really good parents that we found, we pick a random section of parent 1, and we move into child 1. But then since child 1 has empty spaces, we move from parent 2, but we need to make sure there's no repeats, there's no drops of the cities. So we pick from 9 here, which is good because now over here we have 7 is already from parent 1, so we drop that. 6 is also from parent 1, we drop that. And then 1 is valid, so we put it in child 2, and vice versa, we get a new permutation, the child. And that still preserves the order and make sure the local value is still in contact. And then for mutation, we need something that is also permutation friendly, and the edges must be consistent. And we need to make sure that we only make very small tweaks. We don't make too big of a tweaks, because if we just move the roots, immediately the distance can be extremely changed, and then basically just mess up the whole order. So we introduce inversion mutation. As we mentioned before, basically we pick a section of the parent, and then we make sure that we inverse it, so the order is still different, but it's not drastically different, and the edge is still intact. We're not dropping one. We're not changing one, and it's still pretty. The root is still smooth, and then this way allow us enough randomness to escape from the local optima to be continuous. And then we can show a demo over here. So this is a quick demo basically showing that out of the 10 cities, if we have 100 generation limits, basically how they find is, we already got the option. So we'll find different routes as it goes on, but usually to a certain time, certain generation, it kind of already has the most optimal answer, but not the absolute one. So that's the nature of genetic algorithm applied. So as the whole cycle states, we kind of just find the best tour length in the section that we pick. We use elliptism and tournament selection and order crossover to make sure that it's not too big of a tweak, and inversion mutation to kind of make a little randomness but not too much until it's stable. And basically GA help with, unlike brute force, GA actually just trace kind of the speed, trace the guarantee to speed and the scalability. As the numbers get super high, we can almost get a near optimal solution, but instead it would take a whole lot more to be able to find the most absolute optimum. And if we combine with other type of methods, we can even get better results.
Alright, and then for our final example for our core implementations, we're going to go over the vehicle routing problem, which is a similar problem to TSP, but a little more complicated. So this one, you have a fleet of vehicles and a set of customers with known demands. So you have to find the optimal set of routes that minimize the total cost. And this will also be hard and need some type of optimizer for it. So to kind of explain it, make it simpler, I'm using a thing called encapsulated VRP. It's just a simplified version of VRP where we have just a single depot, and then we're given the known demands, the vehicle capacity queue, and the car matrix. And then for our representation, so we'll be starting with a giant tour plus a split decoder, which I'll explain in a second. And then for our chromosome, it's going to be just a permutation of all customers with no deposits, just to make things simple. The split algorithm is just a post-processing step. So you're going to read the permutation from left to right, and then group the consecutive customers into a route until the capacity is exceeded. When the capacity is exceeded, you move on to the next customer, and then you repeat until you get your final set of routes. So I'll be going through the example. Like I said, 0 depots, these are our customers. We have ABCDE, just random permutation. These are the demands, 2, 4, 3, 5, 2. So we need to fill those demands into the customers while our vehicle capacity is only 7. So to do that, I'll go through it step by step. So for the first step, we have our customer A, and then the load 2. So that's less than 7, so that's fine. So we can go on and move on to the next customer, which is 4. So 2 plus 4 is 6. That's still less than 7, so that's okay. So we have our route AD, and then we move on to the next one, which is 3. But then that would exceed the capacity, so we have to cut off that route. And then for our next route, we'll go with C. 3 less than 7, that's correct. Move on, go to 5. And then that's too much, obviously, it'd be 8 over 7. So then we move on to D, which will pick up the 5, and then go on to pick up the 2 as well, and then that'll be exactly full, so exactly 7, so that's okay. And then we have our 3 routes, which is A, B, C on its own, and then D. Just a simple example, but this will be how we represent it. So for initializing our function, we're just going to initialize a random permutation for diversity. If we use the split method like I showed you, it's only going to yield feasible routes, and a good fitness function for that is just the total distance, which we didn't calculate, but it's just based on each step, I guess. So that'll be the negative total distance times the routes, and that will maximize F and then minimize the distance. And then the smaller distance, the more negative number, which equals the higher fitness, since GA reads negative 100 better than negative 120. And then GA will interpret shorter routes as fitter individuals. And then, like we mentioned earlier also, the tournament selection, we'll be using that again. It's pretty much like the best way to do it, because the roulette one is just too random. But yeah, pick up a set of routes, and then from those routes, we find the best in the tournament, or the best, and then that's how we do it. And then, yeah, just another crossover way of doing it. Is just to cross over the routes. So for this one, I did just a random slice from parent 1. So that would be a random slice C, E, and then fill the rest with the parent 2, but you need to ignore the duplicates. So it would be A, B, F, G, H. Okay. And move on. And then for this one, you can also use any type of mutation. It doesn't affect it too much. But yeah, we have the swap mutation, insert mutation, and the version mutation. And then we can also keep elitism, because that always helps just to maintain diversity, and then you stop when the max generation or the time budget hits. And then I just wanted to show a quick kind of a comparison between, I guess, genetic algorithms and gradient descent, since to kind of some ways to solve these problems. So for the math needed, it would be too much for like the gradient descent, while for the genetic algorithms a little easier. But for the search behavior, for the GA, it combines and mutates solutions, while the gradient descent just goes downhill. And then the GA is better for discrete problems like ERP, you mentioned, and then while the gradient descent is just better for smooth continuous problems. And yeah, I guess the weaknesses could be just too many parameters, because the problem gets pretty scaled. And then yeah. And I was gonna show you just a quick demo, but hopefully it helps a little bit. So if we were given the, here, let me check this like data set. So if you were given this data, you would think it would go to like the closest ones and then come back. So this would basically what it generates the routes. And you can see like this one goes here, picks up as many as it can, and then it goes back to deposit, and then the load is 180 while the capacity is 200. And if it was to do another more complicated data set, like this one, where it's not like obvious, I guess, if you were to generate it, you would get something more like kind of crazy, but with more generations and more population, you get a better score. And then next we'll be talking about the applications.
So the first applications, combining the last two hard problems that we discussed, it's gonna be for logistics and transportation. And even more, there's gonna be constraints, right? Just like our Amazon packages, there's gonna be time windows. Even each vehicle has a maximum capacity, and each warehouse has their own rules. So that's apply for transportation. And in terms of how genetic algorithm can help with it, we will quickly kind of make chromosomes as the multiple vehicle routes, and for fitness, we calculate its cost. So it's total distance plus the penalties. Could it be late? Could it be overloaded? Other things like that. And for selections, we keep the efficient routes in contact, and for crossover, we combine the good, valuable sub-routes. And for mutation, we repair detours if the routes are making detours using collisions and other things. For next, how we apply it for AI and machine learning, a big way is to kind of encode the machine learning parameters, because AI has very huge non-differential searchable databases. So how we can set up chromosomes to encode the machine learning parameters and structures, and can calculate fitness by how the accuracy or other type of performance metrics. And in selection phase, we keep strong models, and in crossover, we might change some of the promising hyperparameters that is useful. And for mutation, we can explore other new architectures, changing the little layers, or add some activations. And another thing, another example that we've seen that is started to grow is NPCs, intelligent NPCs. Here they're doing that in PTA 6. So basically, giving NPCs more adaptive behaviors based on players' interactions. In that way, we could kind of encode the behaviors inside an NPC. In terms of their fitness, we calculate by their performance. Like, okay, so in the battle, does the NPC win more? How long does the NPC survive or score? Other type of metrics. In selection methods, we keep the good behaviors, the behaviors that we would like to have. And in crossovers, we keep the sub strategies. Also, NPC might have done this to be able to win. It is useful, so we keep that intact for crossover. And mutations, where we can introduce a little different type of new tactics here and there, so we can make sure they skip the local optimum.
And then for the last one, we're gonna cover the healthcare part of GA. So obviously genetic algorithms, as you see, like they mimic natural evolution, and then that fits perfectly in like biology and healthcare, where many problems involve searching huge biological and chemical spaces for an optimal combination, structure, or match. So GAs help scientists search intelligently through millions of possible drug molecules, genetic sequences, protein configurations, and then medical diagnostic patterns. And then one example of a problem is drug discovery and molecular design. So this challenge, there are like 10 to the 16 plus possible chemical compounds, and you must find the molecules that like bind well, have low toxicity, and synthesize. So how we use GA in this is GA treats each molecule as an individual in a population, and each molecule is represented by its chemical structure encoded as a string or a graph. As for the fitness function, we'll evaluate how good a molecule is. As for the selection, we'll keep the molecule with the best binding or pharmacological properties. And then for the crossover, we'll combine fragments of molecules to get like different chemical charges. And then for mutation, we'll randomly alter functional groups or bonds to explore new chemical space. And then you repeat until you get a strong candidate. And then that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, you guys get it.
We want to do some questions or ask them? Let's see, do you guys, why would you guys use a crossover? Why is that used in genetic algorithms? Someone want to answer that? Do you have it? Oh, please, anyone? Why do you use crossover?
Diversification.
What was that?
Diversification.
Yeah.
True. Diversification, yeah. So anyone else, any other? But yeah, we use it to pass the genes on to the next generation. Let's see, I'm doing a picture on it. Why do we use mutation? Okay. Yeah, you can.
To introduce randomness, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Good question. Yes.
The goal of that is to kind of escape the local optimum, basically, to find kind of the more, what's the other one?
Optimal.
Yeah, optimum. Alright, thank you very much.
All right, remember to continue the discussion in the discussion board, right? Pose your questions and then reply and participate and get the participation go up. Just keep adding the listening, right? Let's continue the momentum. Right, yeah, good job.